From almost having Reverse Flash become the villain, to finally unveiling the next masked speedster. The Flash has teased its primary antagonist, and fans are going berserk. Here's everything you need to know about the Joker. Just kidding, it's not the Joker. But do you know who it is, though? Well, recent behind-the-scenes merchandise photos hint at Dark Flash being the villain of the movie. Now, a lot of fans thought they'd get someone like Reverse Flash as the antagonist, which makes sense, because the Flash is following the Flashpoint Paradox storyline after all. For those who've read the run or watched the animated movie, they'd know why Eobard Thawne plays such an important role in the arc. Before we knew anything about this movie, a lot of people considered the possibility of the Speedster's Rogue Gallery making their big screen debut. Captain Cold, the Pied Piper, Weather Wizard, Mirror Master, and the rest are such unique and entertaining characters that they just had to make it to the film. I'm talking about the versions of them before Geoff Johns' 2000 run that turned them into whatever they are right now. But how do we know that Dark Flash is the primary antagonist? Well, it turns out there was a merchandise leak from McFarlane Toys, who posted a figure of the villain. This was with a Batmobile, 2 Batman figures, Supergirl, and 2 Barry Allens. From what we've seen in the trailer, the double heroes are an obvious hint at what Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, and Ezra Miller will look like. While Keaton has his iconic bat suit that looks almost identical to the one from the 80s, Affleck has a new and improved suit with less padding and more armor. The big bat symbol on his chest is a lighter shade of gray, compared to the black in his previous designs. Too bad Batfleck will be on screen for just 5 minutes though. Now, the two Flashes pose a few questions. The first suit is the whole CGI Green Lantern-like design, which has its fair share of fans and haters. The other one looks like, and probably is, an old Batman suit that's been sprayed on to look like the Scarlet Speedster. Seriously, what's with those long ears? There better be a good reason why it looks like that. I'm guessing this belongs to the other Barry with longer hair, who's introduced after the timeline is altered. Which makes sense, because this version of the character passed out when he first saw Keaton's Batman in the Batcave. Talk about a fanboy moment. Explaining this movie to people who don't follow DC is gonna be a complete nightmare though. As for Dark Flash, let's just say the design is completely different from the comics. Now, let me get to the suit details before talking about the character. Basically, his attire's kind of the exact same thing the Flash wears, but in black. Besides that, it's also got silver undertones and red lightning on his ears. So, all in all, the design's definitely a first for fans who've already read the comics. But still, what's unique about the movie's design for Dark Flash is the extra attention to detail. Assuming the figure is an accurate representation of what's to be seen on screen, this suit looks like a Venom symbiote got its hands on some Kryptonian tech. It's like a mini Doomsday. The interesting part is that there's still a little human left in him. This could probably mean that his identity will remain a secret until the end of the movie. Not only do the spikes and gauntlets show Kryptonian armor, but it also shows that this guy's gonna be really scary. Which brings me back to the CW version of the villain. Obviously, if you've seen this show, you might have an idea of what his powers are. But guess what? The merchandise already told us what they are. According to the product description, Dark Flash steals the souls of speedster heroes. Basically, this guy is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. But here's where things get a little confusing. In the comics, Dark Flash is a different version of Wally West, Barry's nephew. This version failed to rescue his wife, Linda Park, causing him to go down a path of grief and anti-heroism where he severely injured his enemies. He then traveled to the main timeline to steal Wally's place. Technically, he isn't a bad guy because he helped the Flash family battle the Legion of Zoom. But that's a completely different story and isn't related to the movie at all. Now, the design of the merchandise makes him look like Black Flash. This guy is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force, not Dark Flash. The lore gets much more complicated and involves a bunch of other characters. But all you need to know is that he steals souls for a living. Kinda ironic, don't you think? And if you decide to do some Googling of your own, you might stumble upon a character called Black Racer. No need to worry though, because this is just the newer version of Black Flash after 2011. So now that his origins and designs are out of the way, what can he actually do? Well, apart from stealing souls, he possesses all the traits of the Flash. Just imagine a super evil, super scary super speedster that hunts other speedsters and their souls. It looks like the DCEU, or should I say the DC Universe, is making some changes to the antagonist. In the movie, he'll be another threat to Barry, who will already be facing General Zod for some reason. Many fans have been complaining about the lack of Flash rogues and the excess of other villains in this film. Honestly, how hard is it to make Barry Allen's movie about, well, Barry Allen? The trailer hardly showed us a glimpse of Dark Flash, so his importance in the story isn't confirmed yet. For all we know, this could be the DC Universe's version of Eobard Thawne. So what about Dark Flash's identity? Well, since he's got a bit of brown hair in the leaked image of the merchandise, the obvious answer would be that this is an alternate version of Barry. Some say it's probably the younger one that the main Barry meets. You know, the one with short hair. But who knows? So far, this movie's turning out to be something that's going to be hard to explain to fans who don't follow the comics. But then again, we don't exactly know all the details yet, do we? Now, an even more interesting theory stands that sounds like a stretch, but it's worth talking about. The other Barry in the movie is Reverse Flash, assuming that his Dark Flash still stands. So, hear me out. The only way to reverse the warp timeline that Allen caused is to undo any changes. That means he's gonna have to let his mother, Nora Allen, die. I'm pretty sure the other Barry won't be okay with having his mom killed, though. So this version will either try to stop the main Barry from letting the timeline take its course, or let it happen. Now, if he tries stopping him, he could be caught in some sort of Speed Force battle that ends with him turning into Dark Flash. And if he lets it happen, well, let's just say he'll grow to be so full of hate that yellow outfit in the beginning will start making a lot more sense. But these are all just theories, and fans are extremely hyped to see how things unfold. Now that I think of it, this movie would be much simpler if they just put Reverse Flash in it. How can you discuss Nora's death without having Thawne in the conversation? Anyway, if Dark Flash ends up being a prominent villain in the DC Universe, it'll make things much more interesting. Which is kind of doubtful because The Flash will reboot the entire franchise, just like the comics, huh? Now, as we wait for James Gunn's first chapter of his phase to set afoot, it's kinda obvious that we'll be introduced to new stories and new characters along the way too. So I guess we just gotta have our fingers crossed for Ezra Miller to have a successful film. I mean, sure, they may be a very controversial star in this movie, but the entire fate of the franchise rests in their hands. There you have it. This was all you need to know about The Flash's villain.